anything less than that is not Black Lives Matter.
Right.
And the idea that I would be able to create a piece that would speak to that without um, any attempt to chastise, right? But an attempt to chastise us as a community, um, but to more widen whatever the myopic gaze is that some of us have in a space where it is um, inexcusable to devalue, right? The characters are already ancestors. And if they are having conversation and welcoming everyone, then what excuse might we as living, breathing humans come up with next? Um, there is none, you know. I feel like um, the pain that myself and others as dykes and um, gay men and um, trans folks experience um, gets. I don't necessarily believe in that idea that it's it's twofold or threefold or anything. It's serious, right? It is a deep, deep, um, deep wound and pain when we are murdered and disappeared and and hurt by those outside of our immediate sphere and those who are also Black or Latino or Latinx, right? Or any people of color, right? It hurts. Even I don't know about even more, or even less, but it hurts in a different. Um, it hits a different chord in my body, right? Um, and what I know is that there are, just like during any other crisis in our community, there are people who are considered outliers who are mourned, and their mourning happens in secret by those who couldn't necessarily feel safe enough to mourn out loud, right? And some of those are people that are not GLBTQ, right? So we have to open up the space that makes it possible for them to say it's okay out loud that you exist, you know? Um, and beyond it's okay, it is perfectly normal and acceptable. And what is not acceptable is your death, just like the death of any het person that is Black that comes at the hands of oppressors, right? And so I'm hoping that all makes sense. Um, but on my block when I grew up, and almost it seems like on many city blocks, right? There was always a me, right? There's always at least two or three or four GLBTQIA people, right? And some of us are out and some of us are not, but we are there and we are part of the fabric of the neighborhood. And in my neighborhood, everybody knew me and loved me. Now, I couldn't necessarily be on another block and not be called a name, right? And so I guess the play is, for me, a way of expanding the neighborhood, you know, um, expanding the acknowledgement in the neighborhood. I want to be able to go on any block. I want all of our people to be able to go on every block and just sashay. I guess I can start by saying that in the house that I grew up in as a kid, we were allowed to read whatever books we could reach. And for my family, that meant if you found the wherewithal to get a chair or, stack some things on top of each other, um, that's your book, So I have been reading for a very long time. My parents collected books at yard sales. We were not wealthy, or even half wealthy, or even even a fourth wealthy. We were
Right.
broke. We were broke, and we had a library. You know, um, and the books that we had in our library were all from yard sales from all over. Our thrift stores, etc. So I read I read a lot, and I think um, I read probably everything in our library. Now I came to understand that our library was smaller than many, um, but we called it a library, you know.
Mm.
Um, and and I remember climbing on the shelf, you know, climbing on crates, you know, like those old milk cartons, right, and getting chairs and like reaching the highest shelf. And so I love language, right, and I love what words can do. In fact, I love the alphabet. I'm very aware, um, due to my family and the community that I grew up in, right, that the art of making letters and language, um, in this way, right? We've always had it, but enabled to like do it in this English in this English way, right, with the A through Z's. Um, we had to risk everything for literacy, for literacy that works in the U.S. Um, or yeah, this form, right? That we wrote in the dirt with rocks and sticks and our fingers, and we you know, like hid a way to learn to read by candlelight, etc. Right? So like I don't ever take it for granted. Um, it is one of the ways of communication that is as important as a drum beat across a river, right? And um, so my process one is to read everything around me from a cereal box to a cloud, you know, um, to be in connection with all of the energies, and connection meaning communication, right? Like it's not, I am listening, but I'm also conversating with whatever the energies are that surround me. And maybe it's with words, and maybe it's with letters, and maybe it's just with spirit, but it's all language, right? So translating and being a conduit for those conversations that I'm having all over the place in any type of way or form, like, you know, in English is something that I do take very seriously. I try, not necessarily in a first draft or a second draft or a third draft or even a sixth draft, but by the final product, I want to be very aware of all the language that I use, right? I want the articles, the thes and the a's to be in the right place or necessary. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and there is, you know, such, you know, as aware as I am and as in love as I am with the language, with the English language, right, I am also aware of its shackles, right, and its um and its ability to hinder anything of us. Like it's a tool that has been used by the oppressors in the same way that many of the tools have, and yet we are improvisationists, right? And yet we have jazz, you know, and I guess what I want to be remembered as one day. One of the things, right, is that you know, a person who could